Hi, I'm Jill Keb with Plant Life Journey Retreats. I made a video about the passing of my oldest child, adult child. That was May of 2025, and when he passed. But I made a video just a few weeks before the Reiner family tragedy hit all of us. I think you'd be living under a rock if you haven't heard about that one. Anyway, a friend of mine wrote to me, and I really loved what she wrote, so I wanted to read that. And I also just wanted to say that I have spoken to several um, acquaintance friends and friends who have been in a similar situation to where I have been, and the Reiner family, which is a lot of stress, extreme stress for a prolonged period of time when your adult child is not doing well, and there's a crisis and there's another crisis, and then you get a breather, or maybe you get a breather when they're in jail or when they're in a rehab or when whatever. um, I was going to read a journal entry I wrote. My son was homeless, like, on and off. We had tried having him live with many people, like people in the family, friends. Then it kind of went to institutions, and some of the institutions wouldn't even take him. The Salvation Army, I have a men's program, and wow, I was so excited and always hopeful he was going to get in there. But with the dual diagnosis, it's really challenging. My experience has been that a lot of places say they can handle dual diagnosis, which is some type of an addiction paired with a mental health issue. But yeah, they couldn't. A lot of times they said they could, and I don't think they knew where to start. And one of the I remember one of the very expensive places that I had my son in at one point in California said to me, in some fancy terminology, we can clearly see he is having conversations, internally. Like, yeah, duh, like, uh, so it was so hard and complicated on and off. And I never would ever say that I would lose communication with my son. I kept him having phones, and we went through many, many phones, track phones, and it's I could feel my stress level just elevating talking about how hard things were on and off. Anyway, I don't think I'm going to read that journal entry because it was just a time where I had a heavy heart because it was his birthday, and it was his 29th birthday, and he hadn't talked to any of us since mid-May, and his birthday's in July. And when I finally saw him at the hospital, I finally tracked him down, and he went back to the same hospital that he went to a lot when he needed a shower or whatever. And I was like, "What's that about? What was that about?" I mean, I was ready to like pound the streets just looking for him because as I said, I'd never lost touch with him. And we started anyway. He was just like, "Well, this is war," and then he laughed, like he was using the only manipulation tactic I think he thought he had with me, which was to not speak to me. Um, but what he didn't always want us to just give him money, and he knew I wasn't going to give him money because of drugs. I would buy things. I would get him what he needed. What do you need? What can I buy you? No, I'm not giving you cash. No, I'm not going to buy you beer. No, I'm not going to buy you pot. No, I'm not going to buy you whatever, that stuff. But he sometimes wanted to live with me again, and I would have to remind him of all the other times we had tried living with family, friends, and what happened. And what hurts is that he just couldn't follow rules, and his behaviors would be unacceptable. I can give you a lot of examples, but bottom line, this whole the reason I'm even making this video is because I have said from early on in my journey with this situation, that I wasn't going to let it ruin my life, because I could imagine as a parent that you could really get isolated and really get depressed and really have it affect you so badly. So that's, anyway, let me read this letter that, okay, a friend of mine from Families Anonymous wrote, and I went to that Park Ridge group Monday nights for 6 years, and it just was really lovely. And before then, Al-Anon. It's just a really good program. I'm a big fan of 12-step, which helped me, by the way, with my food addiction. Like, me working the 12-step program helped me with my food addiction, because I found a good sponsor, and I did the fourth step and the fifth step, and I worked all the steps. You have to work it, and you do want to be in meetings that have healthy recovery, and you kind of have to pick and choose who you're going to listen to and what you're going to just let go of and disregard, because they say at the end of meetings, take what you like and leave the rest. There will be things that you're just like, nah, I don't agree with that, or I don't like that, or whatever. But the nice thing about 12-step meetings is that nobody is supposed to give you direct advice. So a lot of people who are wise around the tables will just think of a story that maybe has some connection to something that you're going through, if you're going through a real crisis. And they might tell a story of when they were going through something. And you just feel so not alone. That helps. It just helps. That helps. Or people will tell you a story of how they set boundaries with their loved ones, because a lot of this is about protecting ourselves too. You have the right to feel safe in your own home, in your own car, full stop. I didn't always feel safe, but I would be cautious. Let's put it that way, because of experience and history. Anyway, okay, back to this letter. Finding and attending Families Anonymous 10 years ago has been a lifesaver, literally. I was in such a bad place, struggling to stop the thinking loop which prevents you from sleeping, concentrating, eating, socializing, and yes, even loving. For me, it was a slow emotional and physical death. The more out of control my son went, the sicker I became. Yeah, I was getting physical problems, and I attribute them, as I'm feeling better now too, which is stress. Wow. Whew. The Reiner family tragedy has burst open the private anguish families feel when someone they love has a substance abuse disorder and the all too often mental health challenges that accompany it. I remember taking the knives from the kitchen and putting them in my bedroom closet. Yeah, let me just stop here and say another one of my FA friends had their son pull a knife on them, like for real, it happened. And I can't tell you how much comfort that gave me, like in a weird way. Like, oh my gosh, there's someone else out there who knows what I'm dealing with. Like, who knows like how scared I might be in a moment, or of my own child. It's like when these things are happening, nobody could prepare you for the crazy stuff that can happen. So anyway, the person you love becomes a stranger, even someone you fear. Love dwindles, exhaustion sets in, and a hospitalization and stint in rehab become the relief. Trying to intervene is like trying to catch water. It just slips through your fingers. That doesn't stop you from trying to catch the water over and over. America is not shocked by much these days, but the murder of Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner has crossed all social and political lines, because we have all had addiction and or mental health issues touch us in some way, directly or indirectly. Their son, Nick, who allegedly has a long history of substance abuse disorder and mental health issues, has fueled lots of conversation after his arrest. I've heard they loved their son. They were good parents. They loved him too much. They enabled him. They should have moved him from LA. They should have institutionalized him. They should have cut him off. We should lock up all the drug addicts and drug dealers. And my personal favorite If the Reiners, with all their wealth and resources, could not save their son, what hope do the rest of us have? I'm thankful to God and for Families Anonymous and the friends I have made there that have helped me save myself, which in my case, I believe was helpful to my son. My husband and I banter FA slogans and topics when deciding how things we say or do affect or are interpreted by our son. That is to say, what messages are we sending? Old patterns die hard, but we keep working on the program. I recently looked on the Families Anonymous website, and oddly enough, there was only one FA meeting listed in all of California. That seems crazy and terrible. California needs Families Anonymous meetings. We all do. For now, I will keep spreading the word. It works when you work it, and you're worth it. I just really appreciated that letter, and I just wanted to read it out to y'all. And I just believe that, I know my son loved me, and I believe that Nick loved his parents, and I just think that there's you just can't even put logic to any of it. There's no rhyme or reason to a lot of it, it feels like, but I do wish that people would try to better ensure just like some kind of boundary of safety, because I couldn't allow my son to live with us or with like my mother. We had tried that. We had done that one. But still wanted to do what I could to make sure he was housed. That was our biggest problem, was housing, really. And the whole thing, from my perspective and what I'm sharing, is how to take care of yourself through these high stress situations. I think I was talking to another mother who has a similar situation recently, like earlier today, and we were talking about like how it almost forces you to find your way to cope. Like in a way, like I had to laugh a lot. Like my husband and I, we would have to laugh because some things were so absurd. And luckily, my son, he laughed too. He laughed at himself. I would point things out, and he would laugh. So it's like, okay, part of him gets, this seems ridiculous. I don't know. But I would do what I could do. If there was something I could do to help him, I would like do it. I would make calls. I would reach out. I would like research some place for him, and the next place to offer him to go. Because one of my friends always said, we're going to always pay for rehab. So I would want to line them up. I would want to have one ready. I had gone through a lot of them though. And the one that I was so excited about that he finally got into, and I had such high hopes, I was just like, yay, this is one of those dual diagnosis places that has a good reputation. And some of my other friends their kid went there, and I was like, this is it, man. Like, I'm always hoping. And he wasn't even there a few days before he got himself to the hospital, because he wanted what he wanted. He wanted what he wanted. He couldn't do it, didn't want to do it, couldn't do it. A lot of times I was wondering, and I'd asked him, but he never answered me. Like, is this a thing where you can't, like, you aren't willing to try to be sober, or you can't, like, you totally can't? I mean, that's the part that where you don't want to enable, but you also, like, when you feel like there's a brain, like there's something in the brain that's not even allowing, like, I don't know. It's complicated. I can't. Back to myself and how I coped. I would call people. If you are going through this stress, I feel for you. I'm here to tell you you're not alone. There's so many more families that have dealt with this, and the more I have spoken up, the more I have found, camaraderie or like ideas from other people. Like I found a guardian angel, my Cindy, who went to visit my son many times in California. She was seriously an angel, and she would that would not have happened had I not opened my mouth to talk about these things. So if you are going through it, you don't have to be so quiet about it. You can talk to people. There should be no shame about it. These are just hard problems. And sometimes it takes a village, and sometimes, you know, I actually, there are people that would be willing to do for your kid, and it probably makes more of a difference than if you did it. You know what I mean? That's why I wish there were more of a network of like doers, like parents who would be like, um, I'd be willing. I have actually gone to drive a friend of mine's son to court, and I know she would do that for me. You know what I mean? Like then there's not that like a lot of times when it's your own kid, there's just too much history and you're too emotionally attached to be. I think that's the hardest part. Is like I couldn't act. I had a hard time acting like he was a stranger, or like not a stranger. But that's the only way almost you could cope with this stress because it's your baby grown up who's struggling to this degree that is so scary, so scary. And in my case, the worst thing did happen. He didn't make it, and I'm I'm still here and I'm still fine and I'm doing great, considering. But um, it's the same old story for me. I wasn't going to let his problems ruin my life. And I had to say that and keep repeating that and keep, enjoying my life, my family, and other things that I like to do, and etc. So I encourage you to make a phone call, take a nap, take a walk, call a friend. Yeah, call it, go to find a meeting. Al-Anon is around if you can't find Families Anonymous. Or there might be phone meetings for Families Anonymous. I don't know. Turn on some really good music. Read a book, start a hobby. All those things that we know we're supposed to do to take care of ourselves. Eat nutritiously. Plan your meals. Of course, I'm a big advocate for eating nutritiously, planning ahead, and trying to get into healthy routines and habits. So I guess that's all I wanted to say. I'm kind of like just sort of glad that the conversation is maybe more open now that I'm sorry the tragedy happened, but it is it's something to be aware of and have empathy for people going through it, parents and the adult children. Just keep doing the best that we can do under these circumstances that there's just not a solution. Many times I couldn't believe there's not a solution, and a lot of times there's just not, and I just want to say the hours and hours and hours and hours that I put in, I don't regret it, but a lot of times it didn't do me any good. But it did always help to have a plan of, if he does ask me for help, if he is willing to go to a rehab, to have one ready to go. That was probably one of my biggest, like, okay, if he's willing, this is the place that will take him, and this is the cost, and this is what I'm willing to spend. And a lot of times it did come down to money, because there's so much. Some of this stuff is just out of the charts expensive. Like, you can't believe. That's another big problem. But just general basic housing and trying to get on disability, that that can be I that can be a big help, and that can take several tries. And getting a lawyer is something that you may want to consider if you've already tried, because try thinking that you're going to take care of an adult person who can't work, because my son's job was panhandling. I just that's the job he gave himself. But he wouldn't even let me buy him like a harmonica or a ukulele or something. So at least I'm like, well, why don't you try to entertain people if you're just gonna panhandle? But he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to do what I suggested. I just also heard about another resource, which is a smart meeting. Smart Smart Recovery. Let's see. Try smartrecovery.org. Or if you're looking for our meetings, it's the meetings.smartrecovery.org. And I haven't, I think I'm a little bit familiar with that actually, and it's pretty cool. It's the same thing that I was introduced to at kind of a rehab in Chicago that I had worked with a little bit and learned from. But anyway, that's another thing to consider for both. I think it's for both you and your loved one. I don't know enough about it, but there's it's online, so you could look for it. The other thing, just to end with, is to take care of yourself. Do what you can for your loved one, and then let it go. Just that's all you could do. Do something, and then go enjoy yourself. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your day. Enjoy if you're in a crisis and you're freaking out, organize a kitchen drawer. That's always helpful. And there's always something to organize. You'll feel better afterwards. There's always things you can do to, if you need to take the day off, and do that too. Just be kind to yourself, and try not to judge others who are going through this, please, because if you haven't really dealt with this, you just don't know. You just don't know how hard it is and what it's like. And I know we all want to know, like, how to prevent this, how can you prevent this? Because it's everyone's worst fear that their adult child is going to die from an overdose. I mean, we all know it's a possibility, and it could happen to anybody. And trying to think that someone did it wrong, and I won't do it that way, so it won't happen to me. It's just, I understand the idea of trying to learn from other people's mistakes. Believe me, I do. But you just can't always do that. It's like so much is out of our control. So much is out of my control and your control. So you bring it down to what's in my control. What is in my control? And there's a lot. It's all about, what am I doing to take care of myself? What am I putting in my body? How am I choosing to reframe my thoughts? When my thoughts go to negativity, worry, fear, can I change those? If I want to survive well and enjoy my life, I really need to work on those thoughts. I really do. And I did. And I have. And my friend who wrote that letter, her son's doing great. Her son is doing great. So there's a lot of good stories out there too. So many. And that's good news. So it could be a blip on the charts for your loved one. Always operate as if things could get better. There's no sense in doing otherwise. But you don't, if you walk around fearing that what it must be like to not have them, to have them die, I am here to tell you, you will survive and you will thrive. You will be fine. Okay? You're gonna, unless you choose not to. And that's maybe anyway, that's I was very amazed by people who can survive the loss of an adult child. And again, I think people look at me like, how does she do it? Same way I did it when he was alive and struggling. It's kind of easier in some ways now. I miss him, but I don't have the problems to deal with it, the same worries and concerns. I'm going there too. You know what I mean? So, I'm looking at like God took him out, took him home. He's going to wait for me. I will be there with him when I get there, which we're all going. So let's make the best of it while we're here. Life is a gift. Hal Elrod said life is for the living. And I love that, Hal. Thank you. And that's it.